Yo, what's up? It's Winslow. Let's break down this tune. Supermarket 64 out on my latest breaking news EP. It's one of my favorites. It's like mixing the fun and the melodic and then me trying to do like real like gritty bass and just kind of a lot of new stuff for me, I think, as far as all the little bits go. And let's get into it. If you haven't heard it, sounds a little something like this. That's about the gist of the track. It was, you go listen to it. I'm not gonna do the whole thing on here because YouTube's gonna flag my own song, so might as well skip through a bits. But yeah, let's go through a few things. If we look back at the project, we'll see that it's pretty simple. If you've watched any of these before, you know drums are up there. Drums are always on top, by the way. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. Had a little argument about that on the BS server the other day. You have bass. There's only 3 layers to the bass. You got melodic bits. Like, this whole EP was very simple in a way, They have some tracks down here, which I'll get into because I used a bit of outboard gear on this one, which is the analog heat I have over here. So I'll probably make a specific like video over that, just because, it's kind of its own thing, Anyway, let's get into this. So drums, everyone's favorite thing. So that's why I start off with it. Drums always in blue. That's a rule. Okay. All right, so in my usual fashion, drums are, based around like I made a video about it like a year or 2 ago. Just like you have your main bits, then like another layer down or level down of what's important, and another level down of what's important. So like kick and snare are always like, that's your most important thing. Kick and snare or clap or whatever's in that place. Then another level down is shuffles and kind of loops and bits. Or is it? I'm forgetting my own rules, but it's like kick and snare, most important. Then shuffles are kind of like secondary as far as loudness and importance go. Then another level is just like shakers and loops and kind of extra things to fill it in. So if we follow that, we go here, we'll see you got kick and snare. Yeah, kick is just one I stole from another track I did. I just, why remake everything? Just use the good samples. Also a video on that on YouTube because I've been on it this past year. Anyway, so the snare, kind of a really tight, short clap, and then a snare from a drum break. And it's this break. Let me play. It says cooling 162. That's not, anyway. 5, 5. I want to play the whole thing, but I don't feel like, why not? These videos can be as long as I want them to be. So let's dig it out real quick. Cooling. Search, that spell it right. There it is. That's the break. And I just took that snare out of there and gave it a little bit of EQ. And which is all, yeah, just a little EQ, layered it with the clap, bust those together. Not loads, compression, saturation, compression from Camel Crusher. If you watched any of these, you know that's kind of my deal. It's not very technical way of doing things. It's just I wanted to gel and fit in a certain space. If that doesn't make any sense. Anyway, there's a little bit of reverb on it. Very subtle, just get a room sound. And then that's that kick snare. Then a level down, we got the percussion bus, which is all this. Nope, just something to give it a little push, add the groove in there, the swing, as I'm basically memed at this point about swing. Anyway. Yep, another drum break. Just that. Yeah, that break. There's a worm in there at some point, right? Second drop, there's a worm. Real tight. Just the shuffles and no cowbell, but it's subtle. Tambourine. Left side tambourine. Right side tambourine. The two separate loops, which I've used a bunch. But yeah, panned. One's left, one's hard right. Basically, well, midway left, midway right. So they sounded balanced. And they kind of have different accents. So they hit on different beats, as you can kind of see outlined. And that adds a bit of interest, adds a bit of groove. I didn't want to like just one loop straight down the middle. I've been like experimenting with wider drum loops and percussion. That's always something I'm working on. I think I got a good balance here. Then another break, just for a little bit of rides. We look for that one. A bull break. Where is it? Where is it? This one. Another one of those steppy ones I just cut a piece out of. And then the classic hot pants. And then all together, like it's subtle. Then there's a ride later on. I mean, and then kick and snare. Yeah, and arrangement wise, it's just kind of the standard, add a break here, take it away, add something. Nothing too much. So, as usual, all the loops, percussion-y bits go on a bus, and are processed. So go over that real quick. Something new I've been doing. I talked about this plugin a couple videos ago on YouTube about just adding texture and stuff. I was talking about basses, but I actually do it with percussion too. It kind of adds kind of a shakery kind of feeling. So if we go take it off, or take it off, put it on, it's a bit of white noise at the top. Like it fills in, but you can't hear it too much. Like if I solo it, that's what it's adding in the mix. So bring that back down to 78%. Now, unsolo, just that noise that is adding. And so full breaks plus the noise. Real subtle. Yeah, like you could totally just throw a drum loop through here, stick solo on, have a nice white noise shaker. That's something you can do. But that's like the first thing I did. Or I think that came later, because I was like, oh, that's a cool thing after the fact. You know, then the normal Camel Crusher for some saturation, for some compression. And it really brings up that white noise from the Denise. I went over this. Noise 2 plugin. It really helps bring that up in the mix. Then low cut or high pass. EQ for balance. Sidechain to the kick. So yeah, you kind of see it dipping down right there. That's mostly just so the kick's transient pops through. That's it. And same thing for the snare. Snare transient pops through. A little bit should. Let's see. Yep. Yep, business as usual as far as my processing goes. There's a reverb send, but I don't really use it for much. Oh, I do. Okay, so the percussion. Oh, it's not even, yeah, it's there because I always have it there, but I've been doing something else with reverb on drums, which I'll get to. But I do have the bass being sent to this drum reverb, which is then sent to the full drum bus. And I'll get to that when I get to the bass. So drums, drum bus processing, compression. Because it is a bit spiky. So if I take off all the drum bus processing off, it sounds like this. Then add the compressor, solid bus compressor from Native Instruments. Kind of tames it a little bit. Now Camel Crusher, again, saturation, that's all that's going on with this tube. Tube distortion, saturation. Remember, subtle distortion is basically saturation. Here we go. So again, kind of pulls it together. On a technical level, it takes off a bit of the clicks. So that's with it on. Again, subtlety is a thing. I want to keep the original sound, but I just want it a bit more full, a bit cleaner sounding, which is where the EQ will come from later. And kind of true to itself. I'm not really trying to alter the tone, the tonality of things through bus processing, because I usually try to do that at the track level, at the source, instead of let's just, polish a turd, that kind of thing. These drums are all right. Next we have reverb. Now this is what I've been doing on reverbs for drums lately, just sticking it right on the bus and only going between 5 and 10%. So this 100% sounds like. You can already feel the groove, really short, just ambience. Take it down to 5%. That's without. And with. This adds a little bit of room character, a little bit of ambience, nothing crazy. And in this case, it's after the saturation and compression. Sometimes I'll put it before, just so it really pulls that up in between the hits. But in this case, I didn't. Next will be EQ, mix stuff. Another de-esser. This was really clamping down on the high-end transients because they're a little spiky. So I'm like really, in a way, limiting like that area. It's less of an auditory thing in this case, and more of a, once I stick the limiter on afterwards, it has less transients kind of like fighting it, And then in the mastering stage, there's less spikes to worry about. Then we got ozone limiter, just chopping off the spikes again. These bypassed, activated, basically the same sound whether it's on or off, but it's chopping those spikes off. So when we look in like Schmexoscope, we can see with the limiter on, you can see where it chops off at the top, and with the limiter off, yeah, off, on. Yeah, it's another thing to tame. It's not an auditory thing because I'm not pushing it too hard. It's more of a down the line, I know I'm going to be doing some mastering or something else, and getting rid of those spikes helps in that area without being a detriment to the sound. If I were to push it further, then you'd start hearing the real limiting kick in and some clipping, and I didn't really want that sound. So there you go. Then we got utility. This is just gain, so I can fade in the drums in the in the intro and sort of during the break. Just it's me kind of thing. And then I have these two plugins, which were for fills, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so if I, there you go. Kind of like a build thing. And then, bam. So that's the drums. Pretty simple. Just kind of how you would do anything. Just make sure you have a good sound at the beginning. Like you get your sample selection, which is nice punchy drum, nice punchy clap, or do whatever affecting you have to do at that stage. Like how I bust the two clap samples together, or the snare and the clap. And then the percussion loops all bust together, clean, nice and tight, especially for this case. I didn't want kind of a washy feeling. Like if you listen, it's very like that kind of thing. ASMR, like that. But yeah, in this case, like my reference was definitely like Perez style techie drums, but with a groovy, my kind of twist on it. I think I did it pretty well. Yeah, and then just subtle processing in stages on the drum bus to get it tight. All right, here we go with the bass. Bass. So I did a lot of processing on this, which is why there's these stems down in this area, but I'll get to that next. So at its bass, sub sounds like, or the bass sounds like this. And that's first half. It kind of modulates the points, opening and closing the filter on the one mid bass. And there's a delay on it, you can kind of hear. Duncan, you're not supposed to put delays on bass and reverb on the bass. And I say, it depends. This is a very like small, frequency wise area of a mid bass. Like I've cut off all the sub area. That's what it sounds like. Raw with effects. Raw with effects. Made it mono, gave it a little bit of delay, kind of a Lensman 2010-ish kind of sound. And then there's a sub, which is the almighty silent, as usual. With a little, you can kind of hear like a resonant kind of modulation going in there with like this. Yeah, it's subtle, but it adds a little something in there. And all together you get real simple. That was the whole point. And then in the second half, you get the angry boy, which is the distorted one. So let's go in. And here's all the modulation or automation for that. Like it automates. Stop. Gee, it like it I like automate the stereo width, so it starts out like narrow and then it's like and then kind of like that. Cool little headphone listening trick because I made this all in headphones. So, which is yeah. Then there's some volume things just so I don't get like that weird tail you keep hearing afterwards, and then a bunch of noise and stuff, because if you look at this whole like mixer thing over here, there's a ton of processing on it. Like listen to the raw sound. It sounds like this. From silent. And as I stack plugins, you get, let me just loop this and I'm start stacking plugins so you can get an idea. EQ. Denise, the Noise 2 plugin. Camel Crusher, EQ, Camel Crusher. Sorry, headphone users. Let's keep going. So you see that evolution of that sound. And really it started with like the first 3 plugins, which is like my normal harmonic sub bass kind of sound. That is probably what the sub is, like the actual sub is on here. And I just filtered it down, but then I copied it again and just started affecting it and getting these phasers running and trying all this stuff just to get a sound, but maintain the grit and the edge. And then low cutting, so there's no sub information on this sound because I had my actual sub going, which is why together it sounds like, by itself it sounds like, but with the sub it sounds like, yeah. And the even further processing is I took it through the analog heat, which is on my desk next to me, and I don't want to turn it on right now, but I could redo it. Like, again, I'll make a separate video on that. But there's like a couple iterations. As in, this was the first bounce of just the audio by itself. So this is just the stem for the bass, because I ran the whole thing through there at one time. And then did a couple edits. I think this is just another one because it was like out of time. I had some issues like bug-wise. And then here we go. You can now see it. And then the final bass sound with going through analog heat is the one you hear in the track, which is. And then you have like the regular bass. Adds a lot of weight, just weight and kind of grit and character to the sound, running it out of the computer through analog circuits and then back in. It gives it something, you know, which is another thing. Like I ran, if we look, I'll just skip ahead. If I ran all like the mix down, the entire mix down through the analog heat just to get that character. And I did it for all 3 tracks on the EP. And yeah, really comes together. All right, let's go. What's the bass? Processing is normal. Nothing all that important. Let me mute some stuff first. And then, yeah. We had all this processing before and then ran it through the analog heat. So saturation, and then EQ, track spacer. You can see just the kick doing its thing. Then compressor for the snare, I want to say. No, it's still a kick too. Volume automation, which is right there for like fade ins and stuff, fade outs. And an EQ to add a bit of character to the sub, the low end. And this is all before analog heat. Because in my full project, this whole bus is disabled because I have the stem down there. Yeah, so that's that part. Yeah, it's all, anyway, melodic bits, here we go. So the main riff is a sample, it's chopped up. Effects, no effects. I mean, and like I keep saying over and over, I'll do a specific video on chopping up a sample. Maybe I'll go through this and kind of point out what I liked about this one and how I got to this riff. And then there's this bit. What is this? Oh, this is piano. So it's from Splice, and then I cut out certain chords. So let's find this sample. What it sounds like by itself. That is. You can see I cut it off and reversed and all that good stuff. Together. Now, of course, I could have made all these samples myself, but why do that when it exists already? So we got, then afterwards, it goes to the fuzzy chords. Which is this plugin. Which is it on right now? I tried to make an arpeggio, and I don't think that ever made it to the final track. Oh yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. It's all the way at the end. That's interesting. Yeah. In the last 16 bars of the track, you hear it, and that's it. Interesting. But yeah, the chords, I just followed like the main sample and then recreated that. You can see the MIDI there because it's bounced to audio. You can see how it fits with the main sample. Yeah, that's that. And then, so for those curious, it's a plugin for Reactor from their like user library. So someone made this and it's free as long as you have Reactor. It's called Blue Wave. It's a really cool plugin. I've been using that a lot for just more organic or analog-y type sounds. And then we have the pad bus, which is just background stuff. It's like a vocal loop. If you don't look at this, because that's a sample from someone else's track. It'd be okay. You'll never know anyway. And then there's these. Same plugin, Blue Wave. It's bounced audio, so you can't hear it. And then Contact. We have this one, Dan Keen Soft String Spurs, which is from Piano Book. .co.uk. Just some string bits. Which, oh, Duncan, you play all these string instruments. Why don't you record it? Well, because I was lazy. Yeah, that's all. But that's the pad. So altogether, the melodic stuff just all kind of follows that main sample riff. Yeah, kind of got my lo-fi chords a la North Quarter, Echo Brown. Lo-fi chords and tight techie drums. A couple of you'll get that reference. But yeah. Pretty sure that's why we need to make a track together. Because we make a lot of stuff that are similar. Then we have effects. Looks like your whooshes and that stuff. Yeah. That's in there. Nothing important. If you watch the streams from last year, like Twitch streams while I was making this or playing it, early versions, or if you were Weekend in the Woods, then you heard the version with vocals, which yeah, I'm not gonna play those, but you can find them if you dig it out in any mix from the last 6 months. You'll probably hear it. Yeah, they didn't make the cut because I would have had to like pay someone, because I mean, I ripped them from YouTube, like, you know, I do most things. Anywho, remember I ran the bass through analog heat, and then once I wrapped everything up, before I sent off pre-masters, I ran the whole mix through analog heat, which is down here, and it's not limited like that. That's just zoomed in. So here we go. That's the full thing ran through analog heat. And also, so you can like see it on my master bus over here. So there's like a passive EQ. This isn't even doing much. Oh no, I just turned a lot of the settings off. That's all I did, because after I got to a good point, usually I'll do like a high pass, like 22 hertz, just so I don't have any super low end crap. And then a high pass on the sides to get rid of any stereo information that's too low, like under 120 hertz or 60. Yeah, it depends. It's a sound kind of thing, but that's messed those settings up already. Then a little bit of stereo imaging, which didn't do much. It's just kind of on there. And then analog heat, which isn't on, but looks like this. And I have my own preset I made, which uses the clean boost function, which just kind of runs it through the circuits and gives it a bit of color, increase the low end, but it gives it a different feel. Like I could boost the low end on like a plugin, and that gives me one kind of character. But if I like use that, it's just to describe it, it's kind of feels fuller, it feels warmer, it feels less digital in a sense. And this thing has like a tendency to kind of soften the highs and the really crispy, like sheen type area, the really highs, and kind of rolls off and gives it like a nice analog kind of character, which is why I ran it through this. And then for my own self masters, here's a limiter, but that wasn't on there because I don't master these tunes. They're for Hospital. Hospital has Newtone master them, and it sounded pretty good. So here's what maybe you won't get too much of an idea, but let me play just like this loop, right? Play the mix without as it is in the DAW. So it's like this. Okay, then the analog heat version, it might not be as obvious. It is obvious. I can hear the difference. Anyway. So the low end's more prominent. But it's not like bloating the whole mix, because it's after the fact, and everything, if you listen to it, is like really separate. Like the drums have their spot, the melodics have their area, the basses specifically in this area of the low end, and like you can boost a little bit without throwing off the mix. And then it kind of rolls off those highs like I was talking about, adds a little subtle saturation, so everything feels a little bit more gelled. And yeah, that's it. That's Supermarket 64. I hope that was useful. And again, I'll probably make a couple videos going through specific bits, like what I actually did with analog heat on the bass and the full mix down. Maybe a follow-up to that drum video about like the importance of certain layers like kick and snare and shuffles and loops, and then sample selection, cutting, how I go about cutting and chopping samples and trying to find a riff with those chops and things. But yeah, that's Supermarket 64. Go check it out. And yeah, see you in the next one.